A minor misstep on the battlefield can trigger the most intense internal reckoning in history. Betrayals, lies, purges, trust no longer exists in the Kremlin. By the end of 2025, Russian generals presented Putin with what they claimed was a triumph on a silver platter. Kupansk has fallen. Victory is ours, they told him. But the lie unraveled as soon as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky arrived at the front. Putin had been deceived by his closest advisors and generals. There was no victory, no fallen city, and today, those same generals have simply vanished. This isn't a war fought on Ukraine's front lines. It is a crisis that began within the walls of the Kremlin, where purges, intelligence failures, and self-deception collided. On November 20th, it all started with a report presented to Putin. A report that would go down as one of the most embarrassing episodes in modern Russian military history. Moscow Military District Commander General Sergei Kuzov claimed the assault platoon of the 68th Motorized Rifle Division had liberated Kupansk. Putin asked, "Have they finished everything?" Kuzov replied, "Yes, sir. The city is under our control. The enemy is scattered." Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belousov confirmed the report during the December 17th Security Council meeting, claiming Western forces had taken Kupansk and Ukraine struggled to regain it. After months of setbacks, Putin needed a victory. Kuzov was awarded the title Hero of Russia. Then the truth emerged. A video released by the Russian Defense Ministry showing soldiers raising a flag in Kupansk was quickly debunked by geolocation experts. It wasn't Kupansk at all. It was Tavlyanka, a village 20 kilometers east of Kupansk, of no strategic importance. This wasn't a simple coordinate error. It was a doctrinal failure. The Russian army attempted to manufacture the victory it couldn't achieve on the battlefield. Generals, terrified to admit failure, lied to Putin. Zelensky personally visited Kupansk and exposed the deception to the world. Explosions could be heard in the background of the video. In a statement to Polish journalists, he summed it up. The general responsible for the report is now missing. General Kuzov has not been heard from since the truth came to light. Putin is infamous for directing fury at commanders who deceive him. Weeks earlier, a similar deception occurred in Pokrovsk, which was, a key frontline hotspot. Lieutenant General S. Milchov, commander of the 51st Army, exaggerated progress on the Pokrovsk front, showing fictional advances and, presenting logistical chaos as success. Failure on Putin's desk meant a career death warrant. Once Ukrainian journalist Andrei Saplenko exposed the fraud on Telegram, Kremlin leaders acted swiftly. Milchov was dismissed and disappeared quietly, replaced without public notice. Other generals faced similar fates. General Vladimir Churkin, a respected commander, openly criticized the system. He revealed that leadership was unprepared, intelligence had failed, and field data was doctored before reaching Putin. Decisions were being made on imaginary maps. Though officially retired, Churkin was pressured into disappearance and is now listed among missing generals. Colonel General Gennady Anushkin, commander of Russia's southern military district, was involved in a scandal that endangered both the war effort and Kremlin credibility. Reports he submitted exaggerated gains, minimized losses, and prompted ill-advised attacks with under-equipped troops, particularly in Donetsk and Zaporizhia, causing heavy casualties. Following an internal audit, Defense Minister Belousov dismissed him. Officially framed as a restructuring, Anushkin vanished from public life. Then there was General Ivan Popov, Spartacus, commander of the 58th Army. He told Putin, "Our soldiers are dying without artillery support. They need rotation." Within minutes, Popov was removed, branded a traitor, and imprisoned. Honesty, not failure, was his crime. General Sergei Servivin, the Army's most competent and trusted commander, disappeared overnight after Pogozhan's rebellion. For months, no one knew his whereabouts. He now lives in exile in Africa. Gennady Jitko quietly stepped aside at 57, reportedly dying of a long illness. In Russia, generals either lie and become heroes, tell the truth and go to prison, or fail and vanish. But the issue goes deeper than missing commanders. A massive rift has opened in Russia's military elite. Stepping forward is General Leonid Ivashov, a living legend of Russian military tradition and voice of the deep state, Soviet school, and military intelligentsia. Ivashov spoke the words no other general dared to say to Putin. Russia is destined for strategic defeat. Why? Because he rejects Putin's definition of victory. Ivashov's analysis is sharp, unflinching, and backed by cold, undeniable logic. For a Russia isolated in the UN Security Council, opposed by the entire global system, economically tied to China, and with only North Korea and Iran as allies, strategic defeat is not just possible, it is already happening. These words hit the Kremlin's propaganda machine like an atomic bomb. While Putin threatens, "We will use nuclear weapons. We will burn the world," analysts see these warnings as admissions of weakness. The fact that a figure like General Ivashov is speaking out shows that the Russian army has lost not only soldiers on the battlefield but also its intellectual core. The brain of the army is openly rebelling against its commander-in-chief. This internal fracture is far more dangerous than the front line at Kupansk. A front line can be reinforced. A broken backbone cannot. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, while Putin celebrated the staged victory at Kupansk, Ukraine's elite units, Kardia Hur and the 92nd Brigade, quietly crossed the Oskol River. They implemented logistical suffocation precision artillery strikes, and swarms of FPV drones destroyed temporary bridges and supply lines. Russian soldiers, abandoned by commanders who assumed the city was already theirs, were left without ammunition and fuel. Units of the 20th Guards Combined Arms Army were effectively stranded in their own trenches. The second, even more devastating impact occurred on the psychological front. Russian military bloggers and Z channels began circulating messages from soldiers. "Our commanders are sending us to die. We are not in the city. They are lying to us." This was honestly official evidence that the army was rotting from the inside. Once trust breaks, insubordination, beginning with herd mentality among troops, becomes inevitable. This crisis also has a social dimension. For ordinary Russians, Kupansk is not a military failure. It is proof that the state has betrayed them. Imagine a mother watching TV. The generals declare victory in Kupansk, but her son reports, "We are stuck in the mud, no ammo, soldiers dying." The public begins to question whether the generals are lying about deaths, the course of the war, and ultimately about the state itself. The most sacred concepts, Rodina, the army, are now seen as corrupted propaganda machines. It wasn't the economy alone that destroyed the Soviet Union. It was realizing the state could lie to its own people, as with Chernobyl. Kupansk is Putin's Chernobyl moment. Citizens see that it is not the enemy, but their own lies that are killing them. So, what is the last resort of a leader deceived by generals and misled by ministers? Well, it's threatening to burn the world. Putin warns of deploying the Orchnik hypersonic system and reclaiming so-called historical lands by force, if, diplomacy fails. But as Ivashov notes, this is really just an Orwellian illusion. Nuclear missiles can't bring back the soldiers who fled Kupansk or the generals who are eliminating each other in the Kremlin. The reality behind Russia's exaggerated rhetoric is clear. Moscow seeks battlefield superiority it cannot achieve in reality through information, media, and time. The Kremlin attempts to project strength at peace talks, hoping to extract concessions by fabricating victories. On December 15, 2025, Colonel Jano Mark, Chief of Staff of the Estonian Defense Forces, stated that Russia's information war was directly targeting the West. The Kremlin aims to inflate or fabricate battlefield successes, undermine Western patience, and erode confidence in Ukraine. Yet the data on the ground contradicts Kremlin claims. Between January and September 2025, Russia gained only 1,200 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory, a fraction of the advances seen in 2022 to 2023. Russian forces remain largely defensive in Donetsk, Kherson, and Zaporizhzhia. Ukrainian counterattacks are pushing Russian lines back. Still, Moscow insists on success stories to influence negotiations. What is dying in Russia today is not just soldiers, it is trust. Generals don't trust Putin. Putin doesn't trust his generals. And intellectuals like Ivashov don't trust the state. Where trust disappears, there is no army, only an armed mob. And history shows that such a mob will eventually turn on the palace that sent it to die. An army can be defeated by an external enemy, but it is destroyed from within by betrayal. That 20-kilometer lie in Tavlyanka may mark the beginning of the end for the Russian military.